So, in my previous video, I unpacked how the Jehovah's Witnesses are able to exert influence and power and control over their members. And even in recording that video, I kept thinking to myself, like, this is so absurd. Like, how are these people able to control 8 million people like this? And obviously, this is done through grooming. And for those that do not know what grooming is essentially forming an emotional attachment with someone for them to only manipulate and exploit it afterwards because you have formed such a deep connection with them and you're so dependent on them as well. You become very loyal and it's easy now for them to exploit you. And that is what the Jehovah's Witness organization has done with 8 million people. And this is done through the following steps. So the first step that they do is they isolate their members. So through isolation, they're able to have members depend heavily on the organization because they have limited the interaction with their friends or family members that are not part of the Jehovah's Witness organization. This isolation then makes it quite difficult for members to leave because you have formed such a deep bond and connection with members within the organization. So sometimes it's better to stay than to leave. Secondly, they love bomb. So if you have not been to a Jehovah's Witness meeting at the Kingdom Hall or at a convention, oh my word, they will love bomb you so much. And this is done through like strangers that's greeting you, they're walking up to you, finding out who you are, where you're from, what did you do, like just having a great interest in you. And this immediately helps people form a loyal bond to the organization because they felt so welcome, so loved, so appreciated, so wanted. But this again is just one of their tactics where they help people to just form an emotional connection with an organization. And again, it's difficult for you to leave because you felt so welcome into the organization. The third step that the organization uses is strict rules. So being part of the Jehovah's Witnesses, there are a lot of rules that you need to follow, like rules that some ordinary people might even think of. Like if you want to do something that they haven't really spoken much about in the organization, so for example, if you wanted to do yoga maybe in the 80s or the 70s or 60s or whenever yoga was not so popular in the Western world, you would have to consult with elders, find out how they feel about it, and if they say yes, then you can do it. If they say no, you can't do it. Like something as simple as that. And basically, these rules are set there to control the behaviors of members and how they think so that it's ultimately easier for them as an organization to control you. And if you do not adhere to these rules, they can discipline you or even worse, shun you, and no one talks to you anymore. And keep in mind, they've isolated you. So all of these people now that you can't talk to anymore. So imagine how difficult it is. The fourth step in how they groom their members is that they discredit outside information heavily. The Jehovah's Witnesses do not really entertain outside information. That's why when creating these YouTube videos, not a lot of them will actually see them because if they're not allowed to watch such content, they're not allowed to consume content that speaks ill, whether it be a report on the news, in a movie, a series. Like as soon as you hear discrediting information about the Jehovah's Witnesses, you are literally trained to switch off your mind. Like these people will switch off their mind. They will not hear a thing you say unless they start to question the organization. So this was quite smart of them, I must say, because now that we live in an age of information, they would have been quite in trouble if people were just readily going out there reading reports, reading published journals about the Jehovah's Witnesses. And it allows the organization to control 8 million people on how they think, how they behave. And if they do not adhere to all of this, they get disciplined as mentioned. And also they get called names. They get called either an apostate or just pushing Satan's propaganda. So the fifth step is shunning or disfellowshipping, or disfellowship, I think, is what the Jehovah's Witnesses call it. I don't know if it's disfellowshipping or just disfellowshipped. Oh my word, this word. But basically, the Jehovah's Witnesses uses that practice, the practice of shunning, to control their members on how they behave. Because if they do something wrong, they can be shunned. And this involves every single person within the organization not talking to you anymore, and they literally cut you off like you are dead, like you just died, and they don't talk to you anymore, nothing. And this is basically to control members and have them come back to the organization because of they are so lonely, they are going through mental health issues now. Because imagine you had this group of people, you do something wrong in their eyes and they stop talking to you, and now you literally have no one to talk to because of you don't have friends or family outside of this organization that you're actually close to. And we all know as well as adults how difficult it is to form new relationships, new bonds with people. So Shunning is quite effective for the organization to have members really stay, because a lot of people who are Jehovah's Witnesses right now do want to leave, but they know if they leave they would lose so many people around them. So it's just this big juggling act of trying to mitigate your feelings and what you're feeling, yet you know what's right, you know what's wrong, but these people are telling you that no, this is right, this is wrong. And now you just have to keep having this internal fight until you reach a point where you just can't take it and you just leave. But before people get to that point, a lot of things take place, and this is where you find people who share their stories of how they were shunned for like just the most ridiculous of reasons. Like if you report someone violating you, you can be shunned because of you're speaking ill about the organization, you're speaking ill probably about the person who has done that to you. And most of the time it's people in high positions who will harm people they see as weaker than them. So you're probably going to speak out against an elder who's got a reputation within the organization, and they will probably shun you so that they can protect their reputation, the person who's hurt you. So just all of these practices are what the Jehovah's Witnesses use to really enforce their members to adhere to their rules, or if you don't, you might be gone. Lastly, they use fear mongering. This was probably also one of the most challenging rules or steps apart from shunning, because shunning is so hard. It's like so physical, if I can put it like that, where you don't talk to someone and these people won't talk to me, or I can't communicate with them, stuff like that. But fear mongering for me is the most difficult one, because if till today I also still carry it, because you are instilled to believe that if you do not obey God, and the organization is seen as God, so if you don't obey the organization, aka God, then you will be punished, you will be disciplined, and then God will also probably kill you when Armageddon comes, And this really scares members from leaving or speaking up, because you will get shunned, and they will just keep instilling more fear into you. So in conclusion, we are able to see that the Jehovah's Witnesses have used a lot of tactics to basically enforce their members to be loyal and obedient to the organization. And this has led to so many problems now that are arising within the organization, and of course to the public, and they're seeing everything that's taking place in the organization. And I'm hoping that this will also advise anyone on making an informed decision in terms of deciding to join this organization or not. Because when you sign that contract by getting baptized, you really sign away your life. So I want to thank you all once again for stopping by, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.